I am not that old, but something really has changed within my lifetime with language learning. When I was a kid, I remember this game. It was like from the early 2000s. You were just like matching vocab words to concepts.
Велосипед. Да.
Больница. Да.
Аспирин. Да.
Ванная. Да.
This was also the era of Rosetta Stone, the McDonald's of language learning. Corporate, mass-produced, soulless, ineffective, trying to convince you it works just based on the price tag. I think we've all noticed in the past decade there's been a shift towards trusting social media more, and I think this has some very interesting implications when we're talking about language learning. Just 10 years ago, the landscape of language learning didn't really go past traditional language learning classes. And these days, people who are not even language learning enthusiasts have probably encountered some foreign languages or dabbled in some language learning app like Duolingo. What has changed really is that people don't value the expertise of a language teacher the same as before. And my main point of this video is about this shift. We have been going in this direction where traditional methods of learning languages are less legitimate and alternative methods are becoming more common. And this has been a great opportunity for language learners. All of these changes are centering around the decay of expertise and the trust in the average person instead. Traditionally, before the internet, you didn't have a lot of options when it came to learning a language. You could take a language class which centered around the certification and expertise of the teacher. For example, the teacher can answer my question, the teacher knows what I need to learn at my level, something like that. And the alternative was full immersion by moving to the country where that target language is spoken. And I think unless you were a diplomat, that was not very practical to move to another country just to learn a language. Therefore, language classes were the most accessible method before the internet. Simply put, language learning classes are never enough for anyone who's learning a language. Even if you enjoy the method, it's not enough. Without input in your target language, you will not get better. So this old method had a serious structural flaw. There's no easy way to get an hour a day. With the internet, especially in the last 10 years, the situation is much different now. Thanks to the internet, we have the freedom of communication to talk to anyone in the world at any time, and this has the result of being able to connect a learner with a native speaker at any time. They can be your language exchange partner, they could be your language tutor, they can just answer one question you have about the language. The playing field is completely different because of this freedom of communication. You can expose yourself to different varieties of a language, right? Before, you would learn the accent and the dialect of your teacher, but now you can notice the difference between the capital's accent and the countryside's accent just by observing it yourself, which gives you a fuller picture of that language. And notice that these changes are happening at the expense of the experts. In my city, I can probably find an expert of a language who studied this for 10 years and wrote textbooks on the topic, but I can just as easily find 100 average native speakers of that target language online. Now that expertise is not so valuable when you have such a huge variety. I'm not saying that the average French person is better at French than the French professor. What I am saying is that when you get so many native speakers en masse, you get a clearer picture of a language than if one person had taught that to you, no matter how hard they try. Just look at Google Translate. How do they improve their service? They don't ask for help from experts of the language. They aggregate all the usages of this language on the internet and they form some kind of coherent rule about the language. And this is what's happening inside the minds of learners. We are aggregating all that we hear and we're forming our skills based on that. That's not even to mention all of the apps that have overtook Rosetta Stone as the language learning software to use. Almost all of which improve their service using user reports, which again elevates the voice of the average person and diminishes the power of the expert. The result of this shift so far, I think, has only been positive. You would think that the smaller role of the expert would reduce the quality of language learning, but I think it's only gotten better. Learning languages is and never was a school subject where you are fed information and you need to regurgitate it. That was never what it should have been. This has also greatly increased the viability of some less common languages. Before, French, Spanish, German were really the only possible choices you had when you wanted to learn a language, specifically because we could only find a limited amount of experts, and those were the most common languages. So there's probably an expert of that language in your area. I know the meme is about learning Basque, Icelandic, Pidgin, but there is some truth to that. There's some reality that this is now a choice that you can make if you want. And that's really thanks to the internet and this democratization of language learning. These days, you can learn something like Indonesian, Romanian, Thai, which are just as valuable and just as rich as French and Spanish and German. Learning a language is a skill that you have to practice every day and hone your skills using interesting and exciting input. And a teacher, that is, an expert, cannot possibly form the student's mind to be able to speak that language. A student has to be able to access things that a native speaker can if he or she wants to speak like a native speaker. And thanks to our access to the native speakers of our target language online, we can improve our skills in a language in a way that was not possible before. So that's my 2 cents on where language learning is going. This is definitely going to be cringe, especially in the future because I'm so optimistic, but I just want to get my thoughts out there. So hopefully this was interesting to you. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for another video very soon, okay? Bye-bye.